Hello, YouTubers and fans of horror alike. My name is Ben Eads, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about my short horror story, which appears in Crystal Lake Publishing's annual anthology, Tales from the Lake, in this case, Volume 2. This particular Tales from the Lake edition is edited by Emma Odsley and Joe Menert, Joe being the editor-in-chief and owner of Crystal Lake Publishing. It was an absolute honor to be accepted in this wonderful anthology. Before I read you a very brief snippet of my story, I would like to tell you a little bit about what created this story. Okay? My mother would tell me stories about my grandfather. And they came here from, I believe it was Missouri, back in the late 1940s. And my grandfather Lee basically was Gandalf to the very small city of Apopka, which is right on the outskirts of Orlando. And not only was he Gandalf in giving people advice, even the chief of police, the mayor came to him constantly for help, but during that very racist time, he saved a lot of people's lives. In fact, sometimes showing up just when the noose was put around their neck. My grandfather Lee stood up for civil rights, saving lives, and in this case, he got himself into one hell of a story. You see, one night at about 1 o'clock in the morning, somebody knocked on my grandfather Lee's front door, and it was a friend of his. His friend told him that they had a mutual friend down at the barber shop in great pain and suffering, and that Lee was needed. So my grandfather, being the helpful Samaritan that he was, decided to run on down to the barber shop. And he found the mutual friend in one of the barbershop chairs, screaming and yelling at the top of his lungs in the most immense pain you can possibly imagine. My grandfather Lee approached him and asked him what was wrong. The man told him that his arm was killing him. My grandfather Lee asked him, "I can see your arm, there's nothing wrong with it." The man said, "No, no, 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 no. It's the arm that I lost 2 weeks prior in a farming accident. Because you see, back then, if you lost an arm, well, you just buried it in your front yard." The man proceeded to tell my grandfather that it hurt a lot and that it felt as if there were fire ants eating it alive. So my grandfather, in his infinite wisdom, had a hunch. He had heard of phantom ghost pains before, and he proceeded to drive to this man's house. He dug up the arm, and he took a water hose to it, washed off all the ants, hermetically sealed it in some, I don't know if it was Naugahyde or visqueen, but he hermetically sealed it nonetheless, and buried it back in the ground, drove back to the barber shop, and the man was just fine. The pain had stopped. So 2 weeks passed, and my grandfather ran into him by the bank in Apopka. And he asked him, he said, "How is your arm?" And he told my grandfather, "Oh, it's just fine, no more pain, but I would give anything if I could just scratch it because it itches." Well, this story never left my mind. And I always wanted to base a story on this and put a very big fictional spin on it. And its time finally came. And I would like to read a very brief passage from my short story, A Grand Perversion. This is about halfway through the story. They sat in the truck, staring at Gary's farmhouse. Fog drifted and caressed the somber home. Tall grass shivered in the moonlight, rattling against the hollow shells of rusted trucks perched on cinder blocks. "You got a flashlight?" Lee said. "No, I don't." They got out, and Milton grabbed the lantern from the bed of his truck. "Got a match?" Lee asked. Milton produced one and lit the lantern. "All right, then, let's get this over with." Lee said as they headed for the house. Wait, we should let his wife Darlene know we're here. I don't want to get shot tonight. Fine, fine, Milton said. Darlene, it's me, Lee. Lee watched the windows for any sign of movement. Nothing. I got Milton here with me, Darlene. Not even a light came on. The darkness inside made Lee squirm. We're here to help! A headache bore into his brain like a greedy termite. He massaged his temples and motioned for them to move on. Milton held the lantern with a shaky hand. The glowing hue, a sporadic pendulum cutting black and orange across the grass. Give me that damn thing, Lee said, and jerked it from him to lead the way. Let's find the arm. Wait! Milton stopped and sniffed the air. Lee turned to him and laughed at the expression on his face. What now? You don't smell that? It's just the lake, Milton. It's always... Nah, it's worse, Lee. Jesus H! I think I'm going to be sick. Shh! Did you hear that? I heard something, Milton said. Come on, just be ready. They cursed their way over brambles, edging closer to the graves. Tripping over the vines, the jagged spikes of their hungry thorns ripped through Lee's jeans, seeking sustenance. From somewhere close, Lee could have sworn he heard someone sobbing, a child sobbing. Orange light brought the tombstones into view. Lee approached them as if they were ticking time bombs. He brought the lantern to the last one. There's his daughter's stone. My God. Elizabeth Harris, 2006 to 2016. He only got to see her one day, you know. How's that? Milton said. Lee pointed the lantern at Milton. His face was a roadmap of wrinkles and lines. We signed up for the Marine Corps at the same time, same place. The day he saw her was the day he came home, the day the haymaker took her. He lost his arm trying to save her. My God, Milton said. Lee stepped on something soft, his foot sinking. Over here. Look. Ground is freshly disturbed. Only patch of dirt here like it. Lee stabbed the earth with the blade of the shovel and began to dig, tossing the dirt off to the side. After 4 good shovelfuls, he hunkered down with the lantern and brushed the dirt away, exposing an arm as fresh as the day it was amputated. Not one ant or worm had bothered it, as if it were tainted. Lee touched the arm and felt the suppleness of the flesh. And for a moment, a faint pulse thumped against his finger like a tiny drum. What the hell? Lee said. What's wrong? Lee grabbed the arm and tried to pick it up. It's stuck. Damn thing won't even budge. Here, take the lantern. He slid the tip of the shovel's blade underneath the dead appendage and gently forced it up. Holding the handle for leverage, he crouched down for a better view. The orange from the lantern began to fade. Bring the lantern down. I can't see a damn thing. Milton lowered the light. There. That's better. Now let's... Tendrils grew from the arm, whipping and slithering like hungry snakes, and rooted into the ground. The lifeless hand clenched into a fist. Lee let it go. Lee felt his jaw go slack as he watched it dig its way back into the soft earth, the severed end sticking up toward the sky. Arteries flopped over the edge, hanging like wet noodles. A toad's face pushed its way out from the center of a bone its eyes blinking in the light, the torn muscle and sinew sticking to its thick amphibian flesh. Its face began to swell as its mouth opened. Rows of jagged teeth glistened in the moonlight like ivory. Well, there you have it, folks. I hope that brief little snippet is enough for you to purchase this very awesome anthology, Tales from Lake Volume 2. But the real reason why you should purchase this is, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? There is stories in here from some of the best horror writers in the business. One of my personal favorites, and I'm sure if you're a devotee of horror, one of your personal favorites as well, is the man, the myth, the legend, Jack Ketchum. We also have work from Ramsey Campbell, another master of horror. We also have horror fiction from Tim Levin, Lisa Morton, John Whalen, forgive me if I mispronounce your last name. We also have fiction in here from Aaron Dries and Richard Chismar. So, ladies and gentlemen, go out to Amazon.com and pick up your copy of Tales from the Lake Volume 2. It is chock full of horror goodies. And until we speak again, have a good one.